Our scripture today comes from the Gospel of Matthew. It's in the 5th chapter. And to give you a little context of this particular chapter, I've preached around this text a little bit, but not this particular text since I've been here. But Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7 is often known as the Sermon on the Mount. And so this is the first verses that come out of that well-known Sermon on the Mount from Jesus to the disciples as they sit on the hillside in Israel. And we hear these words. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. Then he began to speak and taught them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." May we pray together. Gracious God, may the words of my mouth, the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable and pleasing, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Well, I started talking about dreams. You may have heard I was talking about dreams with the kids a little earlier. Got a little carried away talking about dreams. When I was a little kid in 5th grade, we had just moved to San Angelo, Texas, and I got thrown into a new class with new people and trying to make friends, and there was a period in our class we had some downtime, it wasn't really recess, it was downtime in the classroom, and we could kind of get in small groups, and they would allow us to draw and talk and visit. We had about 20, 30 minutes every day of just this quiet time in the day. It was kind of nice to have that at school. And I got with this group of boys that were my age, and the things they were talking about, they were in this dreaming space. And there were two things they talked about. The first thing they talked about was this boat that had all these ladders connected to it. And that would be the coolest thing ever, to have this boat that had ladders going up in the sky and ladders going down into the water. And they had pictures of these boats with ladders all over the place, people climbing these ladders and going down these ladders. And I was captured by this boat with all these ladders. I thought, this is kind of a cool idea. So I started drawing pictures with the boat and ladders going up in the air and down in the water. But that wasn't the end of their dream, the end of their imaginations. The ladders went deep enough. They had this picture where the sky was like this high at the top and everything else was below the water. And you got far down to the base of the water. They had built, they drew these pictures of this underwater city with these little kind of protective shields that people could be in. And the ladder boat had the ladders connecting down to the city that was underneath the water. And you had these trap doors. You could crawl down the ladder, go in this trap door, and then you're in this underground city under the water. Man, I was hooked in 5th grade. This is the world I want to live in, climbing up and down ladders, living in an underwater world. I thought this was cool stuff. It is amazing when our brain gets kind of attached to a dream or attached to some image of something that's exciting or wonderful, like going, I want to be a part of that. In the movie The Greatest Showman, Barnum, what we would call called charisma. He had this ability to excite people about stuff that they didn't know they were excited about until they were already a part of it. It started at a very early age for him. His father, who is a tailor, goes over to a rich family's house to tailor a new suit or an outfit for this man. And while the father is taking care of the gentleman that wants a new suit, Barnum, who's a young little boy, sees this rich man's daughter going through the formal process of learning how to drink tea properly with the fingers on the handle and the pinky sticking out. And he kind of pokes fun at her, makes her laugh, and she spits out her tea. And the man ends up slapping, the father of the girl ends up slapping Barnum and saying, "You shouldn't do that." He looks at his father, and father really has no response, and he goes running out. Well, eventually the girl, her name is Charity, she makes her way out the window. We don't see her actually climb out the window, but she gets out and meets him along the edge of the beach. And he says, "How did you get here?" "Well, I crawled out and snuck out the window." And they're visiting and talking with one another. And Barnum, at a young age, starts to sing a song about their future. It's the song "A Million Dreams" that we'll get to hear in a little bit. And he begins to sing the song. It's a dream about possibilities and imagination and things you can do that no one else thinks you can do. And even when the world knocks you down, you can still accomplish great things in the world. And that song and the theme of that song captures the heart not only of Barnum, but it captures the heart of Charity. And she sees something in Barnum. There's some kind of charismatic spirit that she sees in him and says, "I want to be a part of the imagination that's in your mind. I want to be a part of the life that you live because you excite me when I get up." And then that song, "A Million Dreams," trickles to his two daughters. When he has children, the two daughters capture that dream. And even when they don't have anything, and he devises this little device that allows a candle to be inside in this little metal screen that has openings. He can spin it around and light images go all over the sheets and the walls of the house and sparks the imagination of his daughters. And they begin to dream and imagine things they can do in their life. And then Barnum decides this isn't the life he wanted. He didn't want a life of not having enough. He didn't want a life where he worried about being in an apartment where water dripped from the ceiling. He had imagined a life for himself and his wife and his children that was much grander than the life they were currently experiencing. And so he buys a wax museum, and that's not good enough. And so he finds individuals that had unique or odd kind of abilities or visual features and brings them in. And that's not good enough. So he has to bring in the most famous singer from Europe to sing. And it never seems to be enough, but his imagination keeps growing. And that's kind of how dreams work. They just kind of keep growing and blossoming. Except the wrong thing. The thing with Barnum is that his dream was really, as much as he inspired other people to do great things, his dream was actually pretty small. Because his dream was about his own personal success. He really didn't care about the future lives of the people that were in the circus. He didn't seem to care about all those things. He just simply wanted to make money and to have the life he didn't have as a kid. And yet he inspired all this other stuff to happen around him. It's not till later in the film, when everything's gone and the circus is burned to the ground and he seems to have lost everything, that all those that were in the circus inspired Barnum to reimagine that you gave us something we never thought we could have. And then he begins to think about a dream differently. A dream that didn't just include him. It was a dream that included his wife. It included his children. It included those in the circus. It included those who came to find joy at the circus. His dream became bigger and larger in the world. And when you tap into bigger dreams, significant things can happen in your life. On August 28th, 1963, Washington, D.C., there was a gentleman that spoke who inspired millions of people to capture a dream that was bigger than themselves. Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous speech, "I Have a Dream," August 28th, 1963, Washington. Many people can still recite many parts of that speech of "I Have a Dream." And the cool thing about Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, "I Have a Dream," is it wasn't Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream. He'd only gravitated to this dream. It was God's dream for the world, where white people and black people could live together. It was a speech, I have a dream about civil rights. It was about economic equity. It was about an end to racism. He inspired people. It brought about the civil rights movement and legislation and changes. His dream inspired so many people to think differently about the human family and how we navigate and work within the human family. And yet here we sit, 2022, from 1963, and we could be sharing the same speech again today. Civil rights, economic equity, and an end to racism. William Barber's making those speeches all around the country. There are different individuals that believe in economic equity and the breakdown of racial divides and the rising of all people to find their voice, their unique voice in the world. There was a woman who wrote a few years ago an article in Forbes magazine. And the article basically said 3 traits that people who achieve their biggest dreams do differently than other people. The first thing that she talks about in the article is the first trait that they do differently, allows them to achieve big, big dreams, is they stopped wondering if they're worthy enough. How many times we have that internal voice of, am I worthy? Am I capable? Do I have the gifts? Will people even listen to me? And so people that achieve their biggest dreams just forget the worthiness question. They already assume they have the gifts to do what they need to do and don't question their worthiness. The second trait that she lists in the article is to take brave steps every day. Every day is a step toward achieving that big dream you want to accomplish in your life. Maybe it's a hard conversation. Maybe it's confronting a person. Maybe it's stepping up or writing something or doing something or saying something where silence is only complicity. Taking brave steps every day to achieve your dreams. And the third trait that she writes about in the article is that realizing the biggest dreams you accomplish are never done alone. They're done in partnership with other people. When I think back to The Greatest Showman movie, one of the things that Barnum doesn't realize toward the end, that whatever successes he had up to that point were not just he alone. It was all the people in the circus, all the people around him, all the people that bought tickets. I mean, a community made that happen. It wasn't just P.T. Barnum himself. It took a variety of people to make that dream become a reality in his life, and he realized that his dream had to be bigger and not just for him. One of the biggest challenges with achieving the dreams in our life is the external and the internal pieces of our life. Todd Bolsinger, who writes about leadership in the Christian faith, says the 2 biggest obstacles to doing significant things as leaders is external challenges, all the stuff outside that we can't control that impedes upon whatever progress we want to make in our lives. And the other is internal resistance, all the inner voices that prevent us from doing the things we want to do because we talk ourselves out of it. We talk ourselves down. We put ourselves down. And quality leaders, Todd Bolsinger says, rise through and snake through in between the external challenges and the internal resistance of our life. And then I think about the passage for today. Oh yeah, we had a passage from Matthew today. I forgot about that. Not really. But we have Jesus speaking to the disciples, and they're not quite sure what they've gotten into. They're not quite sure where this is headed. And maybe they don't really may have that figured out. Even by the time Jesus is dead, they hadn't quite figured out what they were doing, where they were headed. I mean, there's a kind of a challenge for the disciples all along. But Jesus begins to paint a picture for them of a world that's just, a world that's inclusive, a world that's loving. And he starts naming all the people that will be blessed. And I would have liked to have been a squirrel in the field or a bird flying over the hillside as Jesus is speaking to the disciples when he said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Blessed are the merciful. Blessed are the pure in heart. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are those who persecute you." I mean, my goodness. This doesn't sound like a dream of people in charge, a people of great leadership, a people that inspire the people. Jesus is offering a vision of the world that flips the world on itself. Blessed are those who are poor in spirit, the ones that are struggling and have angst and trying to figure out their faith. Blessed are the meek, not the ones that come in and take charge and are bullies in society, who hunger and thirst for righteousness, who know deep down inside that the world can be better than it is. Blessed are the merciful. We live in a world of mistakes, a world that's in need of forgiveness and new opportunities. Blessed are the merciful that give people second chances. Blessed are the peacemakers. It's not just about being at war and angst and conflict, finding a way through in the human journey with one another. And realizing in the end, it's blessed are those who persecute you and revile you and do everything against you, knowing that life is going to be hard. The interesting thing about dreams is I can have all kinds of dreams. I can have a dream about a boat that's got all these ladders. I can have a dream about this underground city or underwater city. I can dream about all kinds of stuff. When there's already a dream that God has put forth for us to live out in the world, we just got to attach ourselves to that dream that's already there and be excited about it. Jesus knew about that dream. The prophets knew about that dream. Micah knew about it, and Amos, and Joel, and Jonah, and all the minor prophets, the major prophets, Ezekiel and Isaiah and Jeremiah. They had a glimpse of what that dream was like. Moses got a glimpse of it up on the mountaintop when he removed his sandals and was there on holy ground. The disciples caught the edge of that dream. And my guess is St. Andrew has as well. We never want our dreams to be too small. And we can say, well, our dreams maybe are too big. I'd rather my dream be way bigger than I can ever handle because it's a dream that's worth being a part of. Jesus inspired people to do amazing things in the world. When Jesus entered the scene, religious leaders of the day said, oh, that voice will just kind of die out. He's out there in the wilderness. He's out there in the fields. He's out there in remote places. That voice isn't going to amount to anything. And before long, that voice kept growing louder and louder. The crowds kept getting bigger and bigger. It's amazing when Jesus communicates a dream that wasn't his own. It was God's dream. And he continued to preach. And even after his death and resurrection, the disciples kept, and the women kept preaching and living that dream. One individual, Israel, Palestine, over 2,000 years ago, one individual helped communicate that dream. And today, in 2022, 33% of the world's population would call themselves or identify themselves as a Christian person. Almost 2 billion people, a little over 2 billion people, say they are part of this dream. Now, we've got a lot of divisions and factions and Sometimes we don't want to necessarily associate with people that are within our same family of Christianity the way we imagine things. But the dream that Jesus started can capture the imagination of people. P.T. Barnum did it with people just putting on a show, and that was a small dream. Imagine when we take this Matthew 5 dream, and let's put it to the test. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are the peacemakers. I like dreams. You may have already figured that out. Whether as a small kid in 5th grade or as a 51, almost 52-year-old, dreams are a lot of fun. They can take us a lot of places. And we attach our dreams to the justice of this book. It gets pretty exciting. It gets pretty exciting.